Come, Basim. We have much to discuss.
That we do, Mentor.
Welcome back to HottChipzz, everybody. It's yours truly. And today I wanted to share with you my personal review and thoughts on Assassin's Creed Mirage. So we're going to touch on a few things here. I want to talk about the setting, the open world. I'm going to cover some progression that's in the game, the gameplay obviously, and then the overall performance. Now, I will have you know that I played this, and my experience with Assassin's Creed Mirage was not on my PC for a change, actually. I played this on my PS5 Pro, so all of the footage you're going to see in the background was provided from the PlayStation 5 Pro console and not from my PC, which will play into some of the performance things I want to talk about when we get to that point of the video. I'm going to do my best not to keep you guys here for 30-40 minutes, so I'm going to kind of swing through this as well as I can. I've got some bulletin points here. I didn't script any of this or write any of this down. Just some of the stuff I wanted to cover. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right in. Assassin's Creed Mirage. Before I get into some of the points on this, I just want to talk about my thoughts in general of the overall experience. I thought it was a solid game. You know, I'll give my 1 to 10 review score at the end. I'll save that for the end. But I thought overall it was a pretty solid game. Now, from what I understand, at launch, it was pretty rough. I just played this myself, so this was after many updates from the Ubisoft team and the developers. I especially hear the parkour was really bad when it first came out, and I'm happy to report it's really not that bad now. As a matter of fact, it might stand among some of the best Assassin's Creed games when it comes to the parkour, so I was pleased with that. I was happy with the pacing. You know, the last 3 Assassin's Creed games I've played and beat were all like 100+ hours apiece. You know, the Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla. Shadows I'm actually still playing. That game is just unbelievably huge, and they say that they made that one smaller than the previous 3 I mentioned, but I'm not buying into that shit. I'm got over 100 hours into Shadows, and I've maybe got 1/3 of the map uncovered. So that's how ridiculous Shadows is. So it was kind of a breath of fresh air for me that I was able to complete this game. I think I completed it right at the 20-hour mark, 18 to 20 hours, somewhere in there, and I was able to finish the game. Now, I did not, platinum trophy this thing. There was still upgrades I could have done, items I could have uncovered, gear sets I probably could have found. There was the 3 pieces of the secret gear I'm not going to ruin for you guys. There were definitely still things that I could have done and finished that I didn't. So I want to preface this review saying that I do have 100% completion for the story. I got the gold trophy for finishing it, but I did not platinum the game. So still meat on the bone if I wanted to jump back in, which to be honest with you, I probably will. I'm a lover of the Assassin's Creed franchise. I just adore the games. It's kind of my cup of tea. And so I like knocking things off of the checklist. Each zone in the game came with 6 or 7 different things you could do, contracts or chests you could find and open, or little enigma pieces you could find that led to puzzles, pickpockets you could do. So there's still plenty of that left for me to do in the game. But overall, very solid Assassin's Creed game. Breath of fresh air when it came to the pacing and the completion time. So it felt very welcomed. I was not disappointed whatsoever with my playthrough. So, to jump on in, let's talk about the setting. The game's open world setting this time around was Baghdad. Now, when I say open world, it's nothing like the Valhalla open world, the Odyssey, or the Origins open world. It's more of a huge open area, if you will. I would say it might be 1/4 of the size of the previous 3 games I just mentioned in scope. But honestly, it didn't feel like it. Like they did a really good job here making you feel like it was a huge playground. It did not feel like it was less of an experience because of this. If anything, I think it served to make it even better, because then they were able to polish more, hone in on things more for the area. But the area did not at all feel small, not at any point. The only time maybe it felt smaller in scope was when you got out of the city areas and more into the wilderness areas. That's where I would argue you could tell the game was a much smaller game than the previous games mentioned, but it did not take away from the experience in the slightest. So I thought the open world here was fantastic. The Baghdad setting was super cool. It was kind of like, felt like paying homage to the old school original Assassin's Creeds, like the first three. Mainly the first one, but I believe that was in Jerusalem, but it gave the same vibe off, you know, the same look, the same color palette, very dusty, very windy, very sandy. Just overall, I think they nailed the setting. The people walking around were all dressed appropriately. They all seemed to carry the accent of people from that area and time zone very well. Like they did a good job at selling the fact to the player that you were in fact in Baghdad. So fantastic point there. The sync points in the game, you know, which if you guys have played Assassin's Creed, you know, this is where you go and you climb the towers and you do the synchronize, and it kind of does like a 360 around and pans around where you are to show you the area, and then it opens it up on your map. It removes the quote-unquote fog of war, as we like to refer to it in all these games now. And it was nice that there weren't like 1,000 of these things to go and collect. Actually, there was a handful of them. I think there might have been maybe somewhere around 10 to 15 in the game, and that was it. Again, very refreshing, very doable, not exhausting to look at or to think that you have to go do to uncover the map. Is that it does get a little tedious towards the end of your experience with an Assassin's Creed game typically. I, for one, enjoy climbing to get the synchronization points. I enjoyed climbing like the radio towers in the Far Cry games to do the same thing. So I really don't mind, but I can see how it might get a little tedious towards the end once you've had to do it 20, 30 times over. But with Assassin's Creed Mirage, I'm very pleased to say that that is not the case whatsoever. At times, it definitely gave me the feeling like they could have put a few more here and there, because sometimes there was, you know, 300 plus meters between one and the other, and you know, you would get the next part of, you know, the next story quest you were doing, and it'd pop it up on the map, but there would be no sync point next to it, so then you'd have to run quite a ways from one to get there. So I did feel like there maybe could have been 5 to 6, 5 to 7 more sync points in the game, but it wasn't anything that was too crazy. I mean, you're pretty much within 200 to 300 meters of anything it is that you're going to want to do in that game from the sync points you have. So I think it served the pacing of the game well, but again, I do feel like there could have been a few more in there. Now, the characters in the story, to which I don't have their names in front of me, Devrim was really cool. He was the pickpocket guy. He's the guy you kind of start the game with, and you know, he's actually the gentleman that introduces you to the hidden ones at the very beginning of the game, which grants Basim his opportunity to do a mission for them. And I'm not going to spoil what happens after that. But I thought he was a pretty strong character, even though he played most of the game in the background once you got to a certain point. If you did not choose to interact with that mechanic of the game, you could probably never see him again. But something about the character to me was well done and hit home as the closest to what Basim would have had as like family to him in the game. So I thought that he was well done. The other characters, the hidden ones, you know, the girl Narel or whatever her name was, Nihal, I forget it. Don't kill me on that. It could be something different. She was pretty cool. You know, she ties into a lot of the latter part of what happens with the story. I'm not going to spoil any of that for you. You know, I thought that the hidden ones, the characters in that, again, I don't have their names in front of me. They were all like okay. You know, just long story made short here, there were only 2 or 3 characters out of all of the ones you're introduced to in the game that I thought were really flushed out. The rest of them were kind of just like whatever. Now, the Basim character himself, the protagonist that you play, I thought was meh, you know, like I thought the performance was mid. Like it's okay at best. I don't know what the voice actor, you know, if he was going through some things when he did this game or what, but I mean, it's okay. It's not terrible, but it wasn't anything that like evoked any emotion in me from Basim, which sucked because I really enjoyed the character as a whole and the archetype. But you know, sometimes these characters in these Ubisoft games, just like any other games, sometimes they're just hit and miss. So with that, we'll move on to what I think of the progression. Now, there were a handful of progression systems in the game. You had the skill trees, to which there were three of. The skill trees were okay. Nothing to write home about. They had some pretty cool stuff in them, but the design of it I felt was very minimalistic, which again probably serves into this game better than having some insane sprawling skill tree where you don't even know what you're getting until you open it up, like on Valhalla. Hands down the worst skill progression tree or system that Assassin's Creed ever done, in my opinion, was Valhalla's. So this one was sweet, it was simple, it was to the point. I liked it. I didn't mind it. I thought it added a good layer to the game that the game really needed, because some of the ones you get down towards the end, which wind up costing you 3 skill points or 4 skill points just to unlock, some of them are pretty cool. The gear system in the game kind of existed and kind of didn't. To be honest with you, I pretty much ran the entire game with the armor that I started with. Like, there was really no call to really switch up. The only situational gear set that I think came in handy a little bit from time to time was based off the reputation meter in the game. Like, as you do things or as you kill people or steal from people and people see you, you have like a wanted bar, kind of like a Grand Theft Auto 5-star thing. It's got like this 4 increments on this bar down at the bottom right of your screen, and the only way to decrease your notoriety or reputation is to like rip the wanted posters down you can find, or there are like these 3 little coins you can collect, in the game that do certain things for you, get you cheaper merchant prices. Or you can go up to one of the guys in the game. There's several of them that like deliver the news of the day, and you can give them one of the coins and it'll take it all away and get the guards off you. So there was a gear set in the game it was like, you get like 40% less notoriety when you do something bad or something stupid. So I think I might have put that gear set on once or twice, but that was it. Like, I literally stuck with the same gear set pretty much my entire playthrough. There was never any point outside of what I just mentioned let me go put on this, because this does poison damage and this would work here, or let me go. Like, the game never really forced your hand into playing a certain way to get through anywhere. You could pretty much play the game any way you wanted and be fine, which I think is a nod to the game. It's not anything that I think went against it. It was fine. There were 3-tier upgrades you could do on your weapons and on your armors, but all they did was make whatever the gear piece did originally a little bit better. Like, there was nothing that was like added in addition to it each time you went up a tier. The gear system in this game was extremely plain Jane. Here's what it is. This is what it does. If you upgrade to the 2nd and 3rd tier, it's just going to do what it already does better. That's it. So, not too much to write home about on that. Now, you also had like a tool bag in this game, which I thought was really cool. This of course came with your kunais or your knives, your smoke bombs, average typical stuff for Assassin's Creed games. You had a noisemaker. There were some traps on there. I never really got around to playing with the traps. I didn't really see the point. You got a blow dart where you could like put enemies to sleep, and then there were cool things you could do. There were like 3 tiers to each one of the tools, and then they had like 3 options to each tier that you could then pick and choose to better enhance the weapon or the tool you were using at the time. I thought this was done fairly well. Again, very simple in its design and input, but again, nothing special, just kind of there to be there is kind of the feeling I got with that. But I did like it. Like, I didn't take any issue with the simplicity and the design that they chose to go with this game, because it was meant to be like a callback to the older Assassin's Creed games, and so these things were done in a similar fashion. So the tools I really like, though. I can't tell you how often I would use these tools. They really helped me get through the game. There is like a transmog system in the game. So like, you have your gear set, but then there's a second slot that's called a costume slot. And so it would basically, for all the different gears or armors you found, let you just transmog it. So you could have whatever look you wanted, but still be playing with the gear set you preferred to be playing with. Typical standard transmog system that's in almost all these games that come out nowadays. They also had dyes in the game, but what I thought was kind of silly or stupid about the dyes is the dyes were specific to the set you were wearing. So it's not like, if I went and I found like this blue and yellow dye or whatever, but if it wasn't for the exact armor piece I was wearing, it would not let me dye what I was using. And Like, why? Maybe they did that to try and give you something else to run around and go find or collect, maybe, I guess. But I don't think forcing the player into having to do that kind of stuff is the right answer. But you know, that's what they did. It would have been cool once you found a die. Oh, cool. And then you could slap it on your armor that you were wearing and go on about your business. And to me, that would have been the way to go there. Also leads me into another slot they had with your gear for a talisman. Now, this would have been a great opportunity to throw an additional simple layer of customization to your character. You know, maybe, you know, this talisman adds 20 to your poison damage, or this talisman gives you 100% more damage when on low health. But the talismans in this game literally did nothing. They were literally cosmetic. They were just there to be there. Huge missed opportunity here. Like, I don't know if they just were in a time crunch and didn't fully flesh out the talisman system, or well, it's not even a system. It's literally nothing. It's literally like this watch here on my wrist just hanging off my thing, and it did absolutely nothing for my character. No gains, no losses. Why? Like, why is it in the game if that's the case? I just fucking stupid. Huge missed opportunity. I don't think I'll ever understand why they even put that shit in the game. So I'm sorry, that's just laziness, and I'm not going to excuse it. Now, the guys you're after in this game, just like every other game, the Order of the Ancients, right? We're the hidden ones. They're the Order of the Ancients. Their whole thing is they are seeking peace overall for humanity, but they want to do it through control. The hidden ones believe in people's freedoms, and so, which they also want peace, but you can see why they're clashing. So, I mean, to be honest with you, you could view them both through a good guy scope and a bad guy scope. I think they do a very good job at making it seem like the only thing that matters is the side you're on, right? They think they're the good guys for what they're doing. You think you're the good guy for what you're doing. So I think there's good and bad on both ends, and I think that only happens when your storyline is very strong, your character arc, your world building, if you will, is very strong. So that I give them 100% props on. Kudos to them. But it's just your standard Order of the Ancients, you know, and this one, instead of having like 30 of them you got to go and kill, there was like 5 of them, and then the main one at the end or something. Again, the pacing of the game, fantastic. No gripes there. It was kind of nice to know that I only had to go and find 5 or 6 of these guys instead of having to find, you know, 100 of these fucking guys. So I was all for it. But just your standard average stuff. You know, you get a quest from somebody and they give you 2 or 3 clues or places to go check out. You go check them out, and then you uncover the guy. You take that guy out, and then you get the information for the, you know, the bigger guy from him. You go take that guy out, and then you have to do that. There's like 4 segments on the map that all kind of lead in to the main bad guy that you're after at the end. Again, standard Assassin's Creed stuff. But, I mean, it was decently done here. Like, again, nothing seemed like it was overdone. Everything seemed like it happened with good pace. Everything seemed like it happened in good time. There wasn't anything where I was like, God damn, this is taking too long, or why is this taking forever? Like, everything kind of ended when it should have, in my opinion. And so, again, I can't talk enough about how good they nailed the pace here with the game. It was absolutely outstanding. But that's kind of it for progression. Moving on into gameplay, a few things I want to cover here. First, obviously, the combat. Now, this was not Valhalla or Odyssey or Origins. You're not finding, you know, yellow gear and purple gear. Well, you found yellow gear, but that's like, those were like the ultimate unique items. Point is there's no like rarity progression system to anything in this game, like in previous games. So it's not like you're going to find a bow that all of a sudden shoots 3 fire arrows instead of 1 or anything like that. The combat was very simple, kind of like the premise of the rest of the game they went after here. It was back like the old Assassin's Creed, where yeah, you could swing your sword. It wasn't going to do a shit ton of damage, but really it's all about your parry timing, because anytime you pulled off a parry in the right time, it gave you a small window to hit R1 to just go ahead and do a one-shot kill on the enemy. Now, they did do attacks that could be parried, and then they would flash red and do attacks that could not be parried and that had to be dodged. So sometimes some of these enemies were a little trickier than others, and they were a little faster, you know, transitioning from a parryable attack to a non-parryable attack. But outside of that, that's about all the combat really brought to the game. Very simplistic, but it did not feel bad. Right, I will say that. Like, it wasn't anything, you know, that I immediately called a buddy on and was like, holy shit, you got to play this game. It was just, it was okay, man. It got the job done as far as the combat. That's about where I'm at with that. A stealth in the game I thought was pretty good. Not very good, not great, but pretty good. It seemed pretty average for an Assassin's Creed game. A lot of the elements, you know, walking around with the crowd and kind of like blending in with the crowd, that was there. You could run around and like have, you know, there were groups that you could have do certain things to like get the attention of the guards, so you could go in there, you know, go that way. You know, again, it was very similar to the things you would do in the older Assassin's Creed games. To be honest with you, I never really had to do any of that. So again, here's something in the game for you to utilize, but the game was never really difficult enough to make me feel like I needed to do something like that outside of the once or twice you had to do it for your quest. But stealth was okay, man. Average, I would say, but not bad. Now, the parkour in the game, to me, really stood out. Now, I remember when this game first came out, the parkour was fucking terrible. I played like an hour or two of it when it first dropped. I was over it. I could not stand it. And I hadn't played it since all the way up here until this last week here when I gave it a playthrough. You know, it was the hard box, hard disc copy was on sale at Walmart for like $15. I'm like, well, fuck. It's definitely worth $15, and I'm an Assassin's Creed fan, so we bought it, we played it. Once I got a few hours into it, I really started to enjoy my time with the game, and that's when I knew I wanted to make a video on it, and so here we are. So the parkour was probably the highest mark I can give the game. I mean, it wasn't superb, but it wasn't fucking terrible either. Like, it was, I would say, somewhere between good and great is where I would have rated the parkour. Nothing really different going on there to like make it stand out from other Assassin's Creed games, like in Shadows. If you play as Naue, I think is her name, you get the little grapple hook or whatever that she can climb up and down. Like nothing like that, you know, to stand itself apart. Just really good. You know, I'm assuming it got to the point it is today after some updates I know the developers had to do and put in the game, because again, in the beginning it was fucking terrible. The parkour, the way Basim was able to move, the way you're able to like turn and jump off the walls, there were just things that they made available for you to do in that game that were not available when the game launched in the parkour, and it goes a long way. Like, I felt like there's only one other Assassin's Creed game where I felt like I had the same level of control with the parkour, and that's Shadows. That's literally the newest one. And then they had to update it a little bit to get it to where it's at in Shadows as well. The control felt the absolute best in this game, again, outside of Shadows today, than any other parkour in any other Assassin's Creed game. Hands down. I actually felt like I was a little in control. There were only a handful of times where he would do something stupid like jump in the wrong area or try to do something I wasn't telling him to do. But that only happened a handful of times. So parkour in this game, if I was to rate the parkour on an Assassin's Creed game, I would give the parkour like an 8 out of 10. Hands down. Now, so let's talk about the mounts, or the mount system in the game. So like, you start the game on a camel. Okay, so the game's like letting you know right off the bat, hey, we have horses and camels you can ride or whatever. But I gotta be honest with you, I probably used a mount maybe 10% of the time I played this game. I never really used it. And some of that had to do with the fact that it just didn't work. Like, I would hit the whistle button, I would tap it, he wouldn't do anything. I'd hold it down, he wouldn't do anything. Like, I don't know, maybe if the mount died somehow, or if I left him out somewhere and he was too far away. So like Basim he just flat out refused to even try and call this fucking thing. So after a couple times of hitting the button for your mount to pop up, like in every other Assassin's Creed game like ever with the mount, I just said fuck it. Like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to run over here to a stable or the horse icon on the map just to get the horse when it's only fucking 200 meters between where I am and my objective. To be honest, it didn't really feel like the game needed mounts. It just didn't. It didn't really take any time at all for you to just on foot it and use your synchronization points to get to where you needed to go. So on one side of the coin, you could say the mount was a huge letdown because it basically was non-existent. But on the other side of that coin, you can make an argument that the game really didn't need mounts in the first place. So there's not really much else to say there. That it was broken, didn't work half the time. So, but again, you slowly begin to realize you don't need a fucking mount in that game anyway. So now, last thing I want to touch on with the gameplay segment is Enkidu. That's the name of your, your owl or your bird that you get in pretty much every Assassin's Creed game. Can mark targets for you, find out where your objective is with certain missions and things. And like he's got his own skill tree and stuff, which I didn't spend a single point in, and I'm about to tell you why. Once you get about a third of the way into the game, the bird is pointless. You can't use it. Every time I would call him up to go and scout something, like there would be a marksman somewhere that would shoot an arrow at him, and then I don't know if he got scared and flew off or if he got hit with the arrow. I don't know, because not only did it not work that time, but from that point until you went and cleared all of the marksman guys or whatever, the game did not allow you to put the bird back in the sky. So the fucking thing about a third of the way through the game is literally unusable. If I don't have to go and take out all the marksmen on the top of the towers or whatever, like the point is to get into the building and go get the guy I'm looking for. Not to make sure I go clear all the corners so then I can use the bird, because the game also gives you the eagle vision or whatever it is, which highlights everything. So I just use that instead. You know what I mean? Like those things actually somehow, in the first time this has ever happened, in my opinion, in an AC game, like they worked against each other, because with the eagle vision or whatever it was, I'm sure they called it something different, but you know what I'm talking about. It made the bird pointless. And then if you're not going to let me use him anyway, because there's a guy on a tower somewhere or whatever, it just totally takes. I'm not even talking about like if you flew and got close to one of them. I'm talking about as soon as you put dude in the sky to scout for you, it would arrow would come right at him, and you wouldn't even see where it was coming from, which is fucking terrible in my opinion. And then it was like, oh, you're unable to use this bird until you do certain things. Well, fuck that. I wouldn't wasted my time to run around and try and make sure I could use the bird when the game gave me another tool to find things I was looking for, so I didn't have to use the fucking bird. To be honest with you, I don't even know why it was in this game. Like, you can use him full on for like the first, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours of the game. That's it. Then it's pretty much non-existent. So if you're watching this video, do not waste any points into the tree to like up this thing's perception or distance. Like one of them, the skill, they wanted like 3 skill points so you could see like the, like the walking paths of the soul. Like, who gives a shit? You're never sticking around anywhere enough in this game to care about knowing the walk path of the soldier. So it was just like, who gives a shit, man? And that's pretty much it for the gameplay segment. Last thing I want to touch on here is just the overall performance of the game. Now, I will preface this again by saying I played on a PS5 Pro on a nice LG AI OLED TV, but this was not played on my computer. My computer is way, way better and way more powerful than a PS5, even a PS5 Pro. So typically I would play these games here. I'm trying to give myself reasons to play my PlayStation, man, to be honest with you. And I bought the hard disk for $15, so we played it on the PlayStation. Still a good experience, just not as good as if you've got a powerhouse PC to play it on, obviously. So there were a few instances in the game where it bogged down pretty bad. Now, I would say overall, if you had to rate this on a big picture, I would still say the game's overall performance is solid, right? Like, it wasn't faltering like every time I turned around. All in all, I'd say it was pretty decent. Now, if you have a PS5 Pro, it did let you play with the ray tracing and the performance mode on. So I did have both ray tracing and performance favored on the system. Had I had ray tracing off, maybe it wouldn't have bogged down as much as it did in certain areas. But that's the point of having a PS5 Pro, in my opinion, so I wasn't about to turn it off. But again, I would say 85 to 90% of the time I spent with this game, it held down to 60 FPS. Now, there were a few glitches here and there in which I've got a little clip or two here I'm going to show. Like one, I was coming off of a rope trying to get on like to the ledge, to the building or whatever, and it was literally like not even knee-high length. Like he could have just stepped on it, and he kept like bip and bip and bip and bip, and he just wouldn't do it. Like the game would glitch. That happened a few times. The performance of the game overall is pretty good until you go into the round city. Now, this is like 2/3 of the way through the game. Pretty much the last 5-ish hours are spent in the round city. And my God, was the performance terrible. And I don't just mean frame drops. And when I say frame drops, I mean bad frame drops, right? But there was also a lot of screen tearing. like, which is typically something you would deal with on a computer. Then you would go into options, you would turn VSync on, and it would eliminate the problem. I've never quite seen a VSync issue or a screen tearing issue with a game on a console before. So that was new. I'm sure it exists in other games and other places, but this is the first time I've noticed it. Again, if I can help it, I play the game on my computer because it's just better run. But it was bad, dude. Like, the screen tearing was awful at some parts of the game. I mean, and there's no options, right, in the options menu of the game for you to be able to fix anything like there would be on the computer. So I just thought that was weird. It's like, what the hell? It's screen tearing, and it got a little like obsessive at times. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so that was wild. You know, in the round city, like whenever I went to see Mr. Muhammad in the game, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but I had to take down some people, obviously, in his room, and dude, the frames dropped probably down to like 5 to 10 FPS for a few seconds. It's almost like the game bogged down and then had to work to bring itself back up to the 60 FPS. So that happened a handful of times. And again, if they weren't huge frame drops and I didn't really notice them, then we wouldn't be talking about them, but they were huge and I did, so I just felt like it was probably something that should be mentioned. But again, most of the performance issues came once you're in the round city. Outside of the round city, out in the wilderness, there wasn't a single frame drop ever that I noticed. If there was, I didn't notice it. But the game gets a little grounded there once you get into the round city. Like, I don't know if there was just too much going on, too many people, too much architecture. I don't know, but the game did not like being inside the round city, which sucks because, in my opinion, that's the coolest part of the entire landscape. I was in awe of the round city and the fact that that actually existed in real life back then. In those times, you're telling me those people were smart enough and had the tools and were able to draw up schematics to literally do a round city? I just think that's the coolest shit in the world, in my opinion. And then you had the main palace like right in the center of it. I was just blown away by the design. I thought it was really well done. I'm sure I would not have had those issues had I played the game on my PC, but I mean, it's a PlayStation 5, it is a Pro, but it's still limited to, you know, what's in there. It's not like I can, you know, go buy more RAM for it or more, you know what I mean, a better CPU so it can process better. It just kind of is what it is. But overall, the frame drops, the glitches, the stutters, they were extremely minimal to my overall experience. So I'm not going to like drop like the rating I give the game because of it. It struggled, it bottlenecked in a few areas, and I'm sure it's not the only game that does that. However, the screen tearing was excessive, not obsessive. That was the wrong word, excessive. But that's pretty much it as far as my review with the time I spent completing Assassin's Creed Mirage. I thought the overall package was a very good one. Pacing, fantastic. I would give the pacing of the game probably a 10 out of 10. Best pacing I've played in an Assassin's Creed game in a while. And it's not that I don't like the huge open world AC games, the more RPG AC games, because I do. I love them. I've beat them all except for Shadows. Shadows is the only one I haven't finished yet. I would have to say Odyssey would be my favorite of those three. Then I would probably put Origins, then I would put Valhalla, and Shadows I'm not sure yet. But I'll tell you what, the upgraded Anvil engine in Shadows is fucking on another. The graphics and the fidelity in that game are on another level, but that's conversations for another video. So, what did I think of Assassin's Creed Mirage? We're going to give it the HottChipzz rating here. I'm going to give the game a very, very solid 7 out of 10. Now, understand, I don't give 10s out. There's probably more fingers I have on one hand than 10s in my entire lifespan of playing games since I was 5 years old. I'm 42 now, so long time, 35, 36 years I've been gaming. And I just, maybe 2 or 3 10s, maybe. So understand that a 7, while some of you in today's generation may interpret that, oh, that game sucks. No, bro, this game was very, very good. Very good. I don't know if I would say it was great. If I thought it was on the great level, then it would have been an 8 out of 10. But to put it in perspective, if I give your game a 9, that's probably a 10 to most people. So, HottChipzz stamp of approval. I would give it a hot 7 out of 10. Very solid game. I enjoyed my time with the game. I'm glad I was able to get it finished, and now we're going to work diligently to get the edits done so we can get the review video into your hands. Smash that sub button for me if you made it this far into the video. Hit the bell icon so you can get the notifications to when we launch and upload new videos. Also, let me know what you guys think. If there's any of you that see this video and you guys played Mirage, let me know your thoughts. Put it in the comments down below. We are still a small enough channel to where I will personally interact with the comments that you leave in the comment section. Like, I'm reading every one because we're not getting a shit ton yet, but please let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think of the video. Any feedback is always wanted and welcome. This is HottChipzz signing off. Peace and love. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We'll see you next time.